Afraid, motherfucker. Be very afraid.
No, I'm interested. How do you
Lamar
spin
in the
this
house.
positively?
That
I
dude
don't
just
think
said,
the
everybody have a
president
Lamar
had
in the
positive outlook.
house.
control
Here comes
for
Lamar.
I
He's
over.
got
gonna be
my
like,
buddy.
he's
I
gonna be
got my
like,
buddy. He's
guys,
gonna tear all y'all down.
he's gonna be like, you don't even know. It's
Our
so
country
bad.
was sold by Woodrow Wilson in the World War I days.
We
Like
know, we know.
we know. So so
L- L-
why
Lamar, what's
are we thinking
happening?
that Trump has any
Nobody
anything?
thinks Trump has anything, dude.
Bro,
Yeah.
chill. Bro, chill.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lamar,
Hello,
what's
hello,
up,
I
everyone.
bro?
am chill.
I, I apologize. I'm in between
I'll
some
shut
stuff
up.
for work, so I don't have a ton of time. But I think just from what I've heard, there's an acknowledgement that POTUS has lost whatever positive control he thought he had of the situation. There's a lot of stuff with my corporate job where there's an acknowledgement that the window for personal evacuation is closing very quickly, and um, there appears to be no diplomatic off ramp to this. So I I don't want to black pill anyone in the room, but this it looks like it only gets worse from here. I think economically in the United States of America, we have yet to actually feel the real ramifications of even the initial part of when the Strait of Hormuz was closed. I saw China has suspended the export of fertilizer. For anyone who's wondering what that means, it's springtime in the Midwest, in the grain belt, and other places around the world. And when farmers don't have the ability to get those seeds in the ground and get the growing season started, the implications really aren't necessarily felt until the harvest season. So, for as much as people just want to say, oh, well, we're only really 2 weeks into this, just the first week of impact hasn't hit us yet. And if this does go through September without significant escalation, which I think is actually not too far away, Katie barred the door. This is, I don't know what in the world POTUS was thinking. I think it's obvious that he had blocked out or completely ignored whatever intelligence support he was getting from DNI. I think Tulsi Gabbard tried to navigate that hearing today as carefully as she could without getting fired, but I think she still may be fired because she didn't take the punch on the chin and just say, yes, the intelligence supported Iranian imminent threat. She danced as much as she possibly could, but it was obvious. I've been speaking to my friends that are still in the IC, and they're all extremely confused. And for whatever narrative control is happening with respect to Joe Kent today, everyone I know knows better. Um, I've made it clear in other spaces during my time in the U.S. intelligence community. I served as a counterintelligence officer, and you do not permit someone you suspect of leaking to retain their placement and access. At the very least, you would put someone like that on administrative leave, especially if they have access to the most sensitive national security information. And the fact now that they're leaning in on him because he decided to disagree with war in Iran and say the quiet part out loud. I think it's all. I think we're watching it in lifetime all fall apart. But I'll stop there. I don't want to dominate the space.
I have some breaking news. Barack Ravid has just tweeted again. He has said a U.S. defense official has confirmed the Israeli strike on the gas facility in Iran was coordinated with the Trump administration.
Well, I guess that
Yeah,
kind of answers my question because I was going to ask, could Trump, since he just threw Israel under the bus, could he have been trying to use this as an off ramp and just be like, Israel's just going too far and doing too much and, using that as kind of his cop out?
Well, he did the
no,
same thing
no,
in Gaza.
no. No one in the world would believe that the U.S. intelligence community doesn't know when Benjamin Netanyahu is going to scratch his ass. I mean, I know that there are some gaps in the U.S. intelligence collection apparatus, but the placement and access, both technically and physically, we have to foreign leaders around the world, to include Iran, is extremely impressive. Even the notion that the United States was surprised by that. I mean, live time, both terrestrial and space-based military force disposition tracking capabilities. There's no way in the world that the U.S. didn't know about this.
And
No,
that's why
no
I
one will
wanted to
believe
ask
that.
you that, is because that's going to be the narrative that they're pushing, obviously, is that the US just didn't know. And so to get ahead of that, I wanted to go ahead and ask you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous claim. I think whoever drafted that Truth Social post for POTUS should retire or resign or whatever. It's just ridiculous. And even for the people in the U.S. that will buy that just because they want to believe POTUS blindly, whatever political issues aside, there's not a world leader or advanced nation in the world that will buy that. They know better. Russia and China know better. I think Iran knows better. It's just it unless there was a massive, very unlikely intelligence failure, there is no way we didn't know.
Lamar, where were you saying that the evacuations are almost closed? Where?
The Gulf region. So it's
Oh, okay.
multifaceted. Yeah, it's multifaceted. So part of the company I work for does personnel evacuation from conflict areas. We have been extremely busy since things kicked off in the Middle East. There was an initial assessment that there was some time to play to a degree, but when you put everything together, the attacks on airports in the region, the attacks on critical infrastructure, mainly energy, the ripple effects on jet fuel, that type of stuff. We're already seeing reports that some airports are starting to completely shut down their flights. Um, it is a full court press to tell these people the best bet is probably ground-based transport out of the immediately affected area, and good luck trying to get air transport out of a neighboring country.
So even though the war hasn't started, it's not a war, the war is over, we won the war is still going to be going.
This thing's just getting started.
This
Do you think there's a way out of it, Lamar? Like if we were to get out of it right now, how?
So I don't think POTUS boasts the ability to do the George Bush mission accomplished from an aircraft carrier. I think maybe that, I mean, I don't think it worked on many people at the time when George Bush tried it. But right now, Iran has proven too effective, even after we've successfully hit a lot of their more exposed military targets. It's been known for a long time that Iran had an expansive underground network that housed a lot of their missile capabilities. And even these claims that the U.S. was, quote, surprised that they were going to target their neighboring countries in retaliation to what we did. I've been a part of war games, many war games, where it's either Russia is the main protagonist or Russia is a secondary or third actor with respect to Iran. And it's been known for a long time what happens if this goes sideways. So I think I would say give it some time. If you did listen to Tulsi Gabbard's testimony today, listen to it again and then listen to it a third time, because you'll start to pick up on how she answered some of those questions to try to bob and weave some of the punches that she knew she was going to take if she answered honestly. And then I think the second part of that is she knew that she couldn't answer to the degree that some of the questions were asking outside of a closed session. But I mean, we're watching the full blown propaganda push domestically.
What do you think
Um,
for the repercussions for what's going to happen to Europe with these gas lines being hit?
I mean, what was it, a week or so ago? Europe was already noting a 50% increase in energy prices. So wait until the impact of this stuff hits, and it's going to get really, really bad. And God help Europe if it's a super hot summer, because it's going to be even worse. But it's the cumulative effect of all of it. It's not just the fuel. It's everything that comes out of that region. It's helium. It's byproducts of oil of energy production. There is an entire supply chain that is at risk because of the destabilization of the Middle East. And even if we were to wave a magic wand and it all stops tomorrow, and Iran opens up the Strait of Hormuz, we're still talking months until you see the global economy regulate. So it's going to get worse. Even if we could stop it today and things normalize, it will get significantly worse before it comes back down. So even this argument about, near-term pain for long-term gain, well, if this goes to September, good fucking luck. Good luck.
What are the odds that some of America's allies might flip and start siding with Iran because they're not getting the protection that they thought that they would?
I think it's more likely in the Gulf states. I think Europe is probably aware that POTUS's threats are more to force their hands, and our European allies are helping more than they want to admit. They're kind of hedging. So Europe's fear is that Iran perceives that they are over participants in the conflict. That could be bomber basing. The UK is already one, but UK is smart enough to know they're outside the effective range of Iranian ballistic missile capabilities. But if, let's say, Italy decided to play ball, which is why I think Italy has said, "Hey, nope, we're not playing." Italy's not dumb; they know they're within range if Iran really wanted to hit them. So I think it's two-pronged. POTUS is proving an assumption that he's had for a long time, and something that I remember hearing when I was in the intelligence community, that Europe is likely not going to be there if an Article 5 is initiated. The last time it was during 9/11, and like whoop-de-doo, we had, fighter jets flying off the coast of the United States, even though we knew that there was no additional threat coming. But in a large-scale conflict, probably not the help that we would want. But I don't see Europe saying that they're going to side with Iran.
What about the Gulf states?
What the Gulf states potentially, but I think they're still trying to figure out the U.S.'s excuse me, the U.S. play here, and even Europe, they still have this concern about Russia, but it's the kind of playing cute by half. So in one breath, Europe says we're scared of Russia because they may invade all of Europe and take us. I think the last war game I was a part of, Europe was able to take everything from the Baltics to eastern Poland in 72 hours. But at the same time, they tell the international community Russia's so lame that they can't even beat Ukraine. So someone's got to figure something out. Either Russia is a threat to all of Europe, or they're such a bad military they can't defeat Ukraine. It's internally contradictory, the argument on its face. The Gulf states, I think, are being exposed to the reality of U.S. foreign policy, and what has happened in Europe and is happening in the Middle East and looks like it is potentially brewing in the Asia Pacific is something that I remember hearing was a concern almost a decade ago, and that is, if the United States of America overcommits or spreads thin our military assets across multiple theaters, our adversaries are going to put us in a position to pick which national security interest matters the most. And then when you realize that there are still operations happening in Southcom, we are still dedicating significant military assets to the EUCOM theater of operations. Now we're embroiled in U.S. Central Command. And oh, by the way, there's increasing concern about what's happening in the Asia Pacific after China took an interesting pause as they're observing what we're doing. The United States of America doesn't have the ability to dedicate the necessary military assets to address all of those theaters at the same time, and our adversaries know it. So I think the gamble is, when the cards fall, where does the United States of America decide to protect? And what it looks like, it's Israel.
It's definitely what it looks like. I think, like, Sarah, whenever this all started, she was frantic, about you guys don't realize how serious this is. You guys don't realize how serious this is. And I think for some of us, it's setting in exactly how serious this is um, on a worldwide level. And it's very frightening. Thank you, Lamar, for coming in and giving us your opinion on this. I always appreciate that. Guys, please make sure that you are following Lamar. He is one of the best speakers on X. He really should have a huge account, and I appreciate him so much. Ricardo, I see your hand if you have a question.
But
Yeah,
just real quick,
yeah, it's
but
for Lamar.
before,
Okay, I'll hold off.
yeah, I was just going to say there's an aspect of this that's actually not being reported in Western media, and that is the anomalous incidents that are happening throughout the United States that seem to coincide with escalation in the Middle East. So, yes, we got this kind of push that the FBI potentially detected a signal from Iran to activate sleeper cells, and the idea was that we would see some guy running on the street that would be yelling Allahu Akbar and blow something up and with wearing a shirt that says I love Iran. The reality is covert sabotage involves incidents happening against critical infrastructure in the target nation, and because of weaponized ambiguity, no one necessarily knows who did it, but everyone can feel the effects. So I hope people are paying attention to these incidents that are happening at airports. I saw a report today where there was a rail disruption, I want to say in Virginia. These types of things ratchet up the domestic pain. And because the adversary that you're dealing with is pretty damn smart, they know it doesn't take a massive organization. It's an organized small team of people to cause some serious problems in the United States of America. The reality is this: FBI and DHS doesn't have the personnel to deploy to protect every single aspect of our critical infrastructure, and our adversaries have known that for a long time. So I'll shut up and I'll take that question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no
No, don't
problem.
apologize, because that's a whole nother aspect. And we did see 2 military bases being closed down today as well.
Yeah, Lamar, I'll be quick. Americans are fairly resilient, and we can probably cut back on our gasoline, which we've done in the past. My concern is diesel, not only for consumer logistics, but even national security. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
So the pro-America in me wants to agree with you, but I would have to acknowledge I'm being biased. Every single one of our adversaries that has done analysis of the American populace post the Great Depression has assessed that we lack what I know in Russia they call the professional sufferer. I know there's a more technical term for that, but it's a hardy, resilient people that can undertake and deal with prolonged hardship. There's a version of this in China. There's a version of this in Russia. And every single bit of analysis, I'll be a little bit careful here, that I've seen come out of both of those countries assesses that if the pain is ratcheted enough up on the American people, that we are not our great great grandparents. We are not the people that are going to go plant victory gardens. We are not the people that are going to go too long without our social media or Facebook or Netflix or Amazon Prime, and that pressure in and of itself, and you're not even talking about rolling blackouts or brownouts, disruptions in our water supply, disruptions in the 72-hour just-in-time supply chain where you can go to Walmart and pick up anything because we just don't think about these things. Or now that we're seeing that there are some airlines that are canceling flights because they're already anticipating that the jet fuel will be too expensive for them to actually make a profit. So I see what you're saying, but I also have to acknowledge, just kind of watching how the American people have dealt with crises in the recent past. I hate to say this. I do not know if we're as hardy as we believe we are, but I think we're going to find out.
Well, my question though, the second part of that is the cost of diesel, which has risen a lot more than gasoline. That was my point. So, like, diesel has a lot to do with logistics, just to get your toilet paper to you. It also has to do with national security because a lot of our military equipment runs on diesel. That price, more than gasoline, has spiked at least 25 to 30%. On long haul, I know because I used to be in the business, can be up to 50% of your cost of a long haul. And that's my my bigger question was not just the consumer driving around, because we don't have to drive our RVs, but we still have to have products delivered. So I'm more concerned about the diesel.
So, but that's the thing, right? So I agree with you on the diesel. That's going to have its, first order implications. It's more expensive for over the road trucking. But what's the second and third order implications of the increased cost of diesel? The cost of the goods that we purchase in the store that are transported by those over the road trucks has to increase as well, while we're watching the value of our dollar go down the toilet.
And that's the part that's horrifying whenever you start thinking about, $10 for a loaf of bread, things like that, just because, ugh, that's scary. Go ahead, Jared.
Well,
Oh,
also just a small thing. It's not just like the gas at the pumps. Once you start looking at what all the products that are going to be, um, kind of restrict all the things that are going to be compounded by this, sulfuric acid, copper. There's going to be a plethora of resources
Helium.
that are going to be very hard to
plastics.
resource, like coltan and yes. So it's gonna be an economic stranglehold. This is going to it's gonna really spiral, I
And
think.
once again,
I've
this
been
is
saying
going
this
to
is coming.
prove that we were not ready for this. We were not ready for the way that Iran responded to this. Lamar doesn't have very much time, so I know a lot of the hands are for him. So I'm just going to go through these guys. If you can get them to him as quickly as possible, I would appreciate it. He only has a few minutes before he has to get back to what he was doing. So go ahead, Jared.
Hey, Noxie. Hey, Sarah. Namara, I spoke with you earlier. You good people, go ahead and repost the space. I actually don't have any questions for him. I actually was going to talk about the Joe Kent thing. So have you guys
Okay.
discussed that, or
Yeah,
is
but
it
we'll get back
appropriate?
to that
Hold on that.
whenever.
And yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, let's go ahead and
no
get.
worries. Yep.
Who has Cookie or Aaron? Did you have a question for him or Psycho? Your
No
hands are all
question. I
up.
was going to more
I do,
reference
yes.
it, but I'm not going to. I'll let somebody who has a question go.
Yeah,
Cookie?
very quick.
Yeah.
Are we
Or
gonna
okay,
see
go.
another
Hold on, Cookie.
withdrawal?
Go ahead, Psycho.
Is it me, Sarah?
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead, Psycho.
um, for hey Lamar, are we gonna see another withdrawal, like the Afghan withdrawal from the Middle East, and how you think that is gonna go?
So I'm not going to say it can't happen, but think about the geopolitical implications of that happening. I think based off of everything I'm hearing from my friends that are still in the intelligence community, Trump's ego will not permit him to do anything that is perceived as tucking tail and running. He has boasted a lot about the strength of the U.S. military. We're the strongest military the world has ever seen and has ever existed. We have unlimited munitions. Remember that from about a week or so ago. We're not running short on air defense capabilities. Even though we're repositioning stuff from different theaters to supplement what's in the Middle East, because the reality is both the U.S. and Israel are almost black on ammo with respect to air defense capabilities. So something's going to have to give. But from what I'm hearing from my friends at US CENTCOM, we're in this. I think Trump right now is happy to have, B-2s and B-52s fly from CONUS and do strikes on Iran. And then SecDef will go to the media and say, you're bad because you're not praising the effectiveness of our strategic bomber force to conduct strikes, even though they've been flying for more than 20 hours. But the reality is, it's kind of all theater. The super exposed aspects of Iran's capabilities were hit pretty early on, but now they're even showing videos of how they have these hatches essentially throughout these tunnel networks where they can launch these ballistic missiles from underground, close that thing up, and move that mobile system. And yeah, we could strike the ground. I know that we have space-based capabilities that are pretty impressive. So I'm not going to say that the U.S. doesn't have the ability to hit some of those underground tunnel networks. But if they're as expansive as I've been told, you're playing whack-a-mole. So I do not see how POTUS gets out of this and he's not taken to the woodshed for all of the claims that he's made over the past almost month or since Midnight Hammer with respect to our military capability, because right now we're being lied to on all fronts. The how degraded Iran is, how degraded Iran C2 is, the degree to which Russia and China are supporting them with intelligence information, the capability of their long range fires, the casualty count, all of this stuff. It's slowly going to come out. There are certain indicators that are almost impossible to hide. You don't close down a wing of Lohnstuhl's, labor and delivery to support combat casualties if we've only lost less than a dozen folks. The numbers will start to trickle out, and everything I'm hearing is we're well within the triple digits. And it's this, and I've said this before in spaces, one of the most sensitive national security interests of the United States government is the perception of the American people. So all of the crazy media spin that we're seeing is to support that. But the people that are paying attention, they can see this doesn't make any sense. Why would you basically surge support to mortuary affairs at certain military bases if we've only lost less than a dozen guys? It doesn't even make sense. Why would you do at U.S. European Command a blood drive to support combat casualties if the casualties are so low? So for the folks that are paying attention, this is going to look increasingly crazy, and I think the pressure will turn up ahead of the midterms. And for as much as POTUS said, I don't care about polls, yes, he does. But I still don't see a future where even if his polling were to tank, which I'm pretty sure it's lower than what they're saying, where almost 100% of quote MAGA supports this, where he says essentially mission accomplished, we're heading home. But everyone can see that, well, hold on, Iran is still successfully targeting critical infrastructure in the region. And despite our bombing campaigns, it's not stopping it. So I think POTUS is going to catch 22, and I'm not sure how he gets out of it.
Thank you, Lamar. Go ahead, Cookie, and then Debbie.
Okay, thanks so much.
Mo had
Lamar,
his hand up before Debbie.
what's
I
that?
don't even see Mo's hand. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah,
Well, she
I
was
see
trying
it.
to talk just a second ago. Let Cookie go, and then Mo, and then Debbie.
Okay, Lamar, thanks for being here. You're probably the most important voice on X right now for us. Um, my question is, with Israel's 82 Talpiot program placements at really critical, you know, infrastructure choke points in the cyber world, 9/11 was such a visible, physical, dramatic, thing that we could all see. Um, with messaging from like the World Economic Forum, and to the movie Leave the World Behind, what do you think about a large cyber attack to manufacture consent of Americans, a large cyber attack that Israel can place the signature of that attack on Iran and blame it on Iran? What do you think about that? It'd be a lot harder thing to disprove, right, than say
Yeah,
9/11.
yeah,
What do you think
absolutely. I
about that?
mean, I think everything you just articulated falls in line with a couple years ago, right after Event 201, where they practiced a COVID global pandemic. The World Economic Forum conducted what was an exercise called Cyber Polygon, and it was essentially what you just said. Um, I know, it sounds like you know as well. I'll go ahead and say it. There's a practice in the cyber community called parallel construction. This was partially leaked as a part of CIA's capabilities with Vault 6, where you can do cyber operations and make it look like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. And even with some degree of sophisticated digital forensics, you'd be hard pressed to identify who the true actor was. And by the time you did, you're going to be called a conspiracy theorist, un-American, and the media is going to attack you for being some type of a nutcase. So the implications of the action will be too far gone before people realize what actually happened. So I think that's very, very possible.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mo.
Hi, sorry, I'll try to keep my question concise. So there are recent reports that the Iraqi factions have proclaimed that they will cease fire on American bases if the Israelis were to withdraw from Lebanon, as it were. So my question is, what do you think about potential there's in other theaters of war, such as Iraqi resistance and also Yemen, if they were to engage? What would their impact be, if at all?
I mean, if Yemen decides to activate and shut down for the large part maritime traffic through the Red Sea, holy shit. We in my corporate job, we're already seeing how there's increased traffic through the region to try to avoid the Strait of Hormuz, but that's all based off of a wish, a hope, and a prayer that the Houthis don't decide to enter the chat, as the young folks say. So I don't know. I have heard reporting that the Houthis have basically said, at a time and place of our choosing, that they're going to get into the fight. But if that happens while the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, I I don't even know if it's necessarily possible to predict the economic effects globally of both of those strategic waterways being shut at the same time. And the scary thing about that is we wouldn't even necessarily feel the economic impacts of that until a month, 2, 3 months. I mean, think about it like this. We won't feel the totality of the first week of the Strait of Hormuz closed until end of March, beginning of April. That's how delayed some of these effects are. So as this is prolonged, there's compounding effects economically, strategically, and it's hitting everyone. It is. But what most Americans aren't told is that other countries, Russia and China, have taken steps because geopolitically, in their analysis, they've seen this coming for a long time. The American people are the only ones that are surprised. We're trying to figure out what is POTUS doing, what's the desired end game. We can't figure out what was the catalyst for the war. Was it imminent threat? But I thought the threat was eliminated after Midnight Hammer. But now it's ICBMs, and now it's threats to the region. And it's, they were 2 weeks away from a nuke for 30 years, all this kind of stuff. Everyone's having what we would call, when I was in the IC, information operations whiplash. And it's where you change the narrative too fast for the target population to accept it. We used to say you have to let IO cook, which means there is a time cognitively for that to just kind of settle for the people to accept it. When you change your narrative every single day, it induces confusion. So I wish I had a better answer for you. I apologize for sounding a bit
No,
erratic,
no,
but
you.
it's all a mess.
No, I completely agree. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, hey, Noxie, I appreciate the time. I apologize for dominating the space. I do have to jump. I hope everyone has a good night. Please keep paying attention. You're doing the best thing possible. At least this group of people was talking about it, and no one's freaking out, running to the store and trying to buy, 5 aisles at a time. I would just say there is nothing wrong with being prepared for a bad day, and it is better to go to your pantry and have some beans and rice than stand in line at a FEMA line waiting for rations. So